Hey everybody, I am Tommy and you are on the lifeboat. What's happening? Hope you guys are doing well. I think it's what is it, Tuesday? I think it's Tuesday. Kelly Gerling, Kristen Melinda, Just Joan, how are you? Good to see you. I'm glad that you are here. I'm glad you're all here. We're going to be doing a little catch up. I'm going to be talking about some things that are going on. If you've been paying attention while I'm gone, there's been some fascinating stuff that's going on. And I got, hey, Joey girl, and I got a couple of hot takes on some things that have been going on in the news. I've been taking care of myself physically and just getting sort of squared away. Tommy Bird, good to see you, my friend. I'm glad that you're here. So, and I've had a little time to work on some hobbies, do some other stuff. It's been really nice. Calamity and Mary Jane, good to see you. Hello, Melissa Merrill, Clifton, glad that you're here. So, I don't know if you guys saw this, but apparently there's a bunch of astronauts. These are new astronauts. You guys familiar with this? Huh? Good to see you too, Tommy Bird. I love you, my brother, man. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, Christy Wolf, we'll touch on Diddy. I brought the cool hat. Don't trip. I brought the cool hat, so do not trip. Hello, Tara Galo, Brock Bandy. Inez, good to see you. Inez Dumaine. Love my hot takes? Well, good, right? So here's a hot take. Are you guys familiar with this Katy Perry going into space thing? Now, you guys probably, this is going to come as a shock to you, but I have an opinion on this. Here's the thing with the Katy Perry deal. You know what the problem with this Katy Perry and all of these women going into space as astronauts are? Number one, the obvious, right? This is really going to make way for women in space. I used to play golf. My dad and I used to play golf with a guy, and his wife, her name was Eileen. She was the first woman to ever be the captain on a space shuttle back when space shuttles still went up and down. And she was mission control. Like, this was her flight. Everything about it, it was her. And I got a cool patch she took up into space and a little American flag, and she gave me this little frame thing. But that was the first woman that piloted one of those. So it was her responsibility to actually get that thing up and down. And if you know anything about coming back into our solar system, into our, not solar system, into our environment, as you start to go and break through the upper layers of our atmosphere, it gets hotter than hell. And they used to say, if you did it wrong, if you come in at the wrong angle, you burn up. You're too steep, and the craft and the heat pad and all of that stuff on the outside of it, the heat shields, can't take that kind of direct descent. But if you come in too shallow, you skip like a stone on a pond. You can actually kind of hit and skip off like a pond, and then the next thing you know, you're kind of in trouble. What they were on, and I'm not bagging on them, but I was watching the takeoff with Johnny Scoville, and when the thing first took off and it went up, when the separation happened from the rocket to the capsule itself, the little flying device, whatever the hell you want to call it, when that separation took place, the two of them seemed to be falling at the same rate. They weren't separating from one another. Normally, when you see that first stage rocket drop, it drops not because it's dropping, but because the upper stage is smoking another 50 or 60 kilometers up. That's not what happened here, right? What happened here is they were just going to get high enough to say that they touched the outreaches of space. And that's not a problem for them. Who cares, right? I mean, honestly, I don't care. But they were not flying the thing. And they came down kind of with an attitude problem because people were saying, this doesn't make you an astronaut. There's a very funny comedian that said, they spent 3 minutes in space. If spending 3 minutes in space makes you an astronaut, then I'm a gynecologist. Thought that was kind of funny. But anyway, the point being this. What they did was a vomit comet, right? They did the anti-G vomit comet, but they did it for a lot more money. This thing went up, and at the apogee, right about here, they dropped. And then the nose cone and the first stage of the rocket were falling at the same speed. When you are falling that fast and you unbuckle, you're going to fly through space, right? You're going to feel weightless. You can do that without leaving the atmosphere. And kind of, folks, that's really where we're at. So all the people that are saying, hey, man, you can't have a spaceship with a door that opens in, right? That's a bad idea because the pressure on the outside of the thing would force the door open, right? And a lot of conspiracy theorists are saying, hey, why the hell does the door open in on that? Well, whatever, right? If you ask AI about it, the AI will say, hey, as long as you're not really going into deep space, it doesn't much matter. But they're not going into space. They were touching the very tips of space, just far enough to go, yeah, we made it. And I'm not mad at them, but it says more about the guy putting that thing into space. If you look at what Elon Musk has done this year, he's averaging a launch every 3 or 4 days, literally. He's averaging a launch every 3 or 4 days. If you compare that with what's going on with our boy from Amazon, he's not putting things into orbit, which is kind of a big deal if you have rockets, right? Because that's really what you're trying to do with any kind of rocket is deliver a payload. When we had people stranded, by the way, one of them was a woman and she was up there forever. But while we had people stranded up there, we needed Elon to toss up one of those rockets that could get us into orbit. In doing so, we could save those people. What's happening with our boy at Blue Horizon? He can't get a rocket into orbit. Not, he's doing a hell of a lot better than I am. I'm not bagging on Jeff Bezos. All I'm saying is he's trying to get a really good publicity stunt going, and he butchered it. And the reason he butchered it is because when they went out to the landed site, by the way, this whole thing took 10 minutes and 20 seconds. You start looking at how high they went. 10 minutes and 20 seconds is a hell of a ride. It's about 64 kilometers up or something. But what you did was you took the world's most expensive carnival ride. You're not going to be steering anything. You're not doing anything like that. And for all intents and purposes, they launched you up and they let you catch some really cool feelings while you were weightless because you're dropping in 0G basically. But you are not leaving the atmosphere. Not that that matters to me, but it matters to a lot of people in the world. And it matters to astronauts who are getting a little salty. And I'll tell you something. If I were Eileen Collins, if I was the woman that piloted the first space shuttle, to hear Katy Perry say that, this is going to really open up doors for women in space, I don't know. That would be a bit of an insult to me. Now, there's a conspiracy theory that says they didn't go into space at all. The reason for this is, as you see Jeff Bezos approach the capsule, the door opens before he gets there. And the conspiracy theorists are saying, hey, the fact that they could open the door from the inside means that this is bunk. That's not a fact. There was a horrific accident in NASA back in the day where one of the small, I think it was a Gemini capsule, caught fire on the launch pad, and everybody inside burned to death. And they screamed the entire time. It was horrific. And the reason was that even though things were going bad, they had no ability to get themselves out. So they had to bring people up. And by the time they did, everybody inside was not in good shape. They were all dead. So they passed a law that all of these space vehicles have to have the ability for the people inside to get outside on their own in less than 60 seconds. I read this. Look this up. There's another theory that says, no, those women couldn't have gone that high. Their breast implants would have exploded. I'm not playing, folks. There are multiple videos talking about how Bezos's wife could never have gone that high because of her implants. They would have exploded. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. And I think a lot of times when we start to really stretch, we start looking stupid. The people that sound intelligent say things like that capsule came back down, the New Shepard Blue Horizon capsule came back down to Earth, looking like it might have just left the dry cleaners. Now that's odd, because if you look at the vehicles that come down from Elon Musk after he launches them, they look like they've been blowtorched, right? They've got some very cool kind of effects on the outside. And the reason is you're going to reach temperatures north of 3,000 degrees coming back. And that's if you don't get all the way out, right? If you get all the way out to where Musk is going, then they're talking about much higher temperatures. This was a very clean spaceship when it landed. I don't care. I really don't. What it comes down to, once again, is they didn't leave the atmosphere. It's a whole lot easier on the vehicle. One of the other conspiracy theories says they hit the ground too hard. If there were people inside that, they'd have been toast. That thing had to have hit the ground going 20 miles an hour, right? They wouldn't just be fine. Please keep in mind, folks, that these things are designed by engineers whose number one goal is to make sure that people inside are safe. So there is a shock absorber kind of a system that as you lay in this thing, it's called an air ride system. So as this thing hits, you're sinking down with it. It is designed to make that impact considerably less of a jarring effect on the body. To say, I don't believe this happened, I think is crazy. In this day and age, if you're Jeff Bezos and you fake a launch, I think Elon Musk is going to call you out on it. especially since the space race these days is between them and Boeing and Virgin and all that. These are all private companies now, and Elon Musk is winning. Like him or hate him, he's winning. He's putting, in fact, almost everything that goes into space now is being put up by a Falcon 9 rocket and being put up by Elon Musk. What Jeff Bezos is doing is space tourism. It is a lot more expensive than doing the Vomit Comet, which is a 0G. There's another one called the G something or other. There's multiple. It's a 747 that's converted, and it flies in these huge arcs where you'll get up to 60,000 feet or whatever, and then it goes into a dive and takes you down to about 10. So for 50,000 feet, you are in free fall inside this, and they hollow it out and they put pads on the walls, and it's where they film things like the Apollo 13, right? Those films where people are in 0G are more often than not filmed in the Vomit Comet. And the name is obvious. The reason that they call it the Vomit Comet is because the inside of it smells a little like chunder, because that's what happens when you bring people up and you take them from feeling real normal to, hey, where'd the ground go kind of a thing, where your stomach is now floating around inside. Sandy, Wendy, good to see you. Glad that you're here. This is a much more expensive version. You can do a Vomit Comet, I think, for between 8 and 20 grand. And depending on who you believe, there are people that are saying they paid 150K. There are people that said they paid more than that. One moment. Oh, it's fantastic. Well, thank you. All right. So that's kind of where I stand on this. I do believe they went up in the thing. I do. And I believe that Jeff Bezos wanted a photo op. And that photo op was going to be him opening the thing. So when the door opened from the inside, and the ladies probably opened it, it's hot in there. They're in the middle of the desert. They'd like to get out. And they went, hold up, hold up. Now it makes it look bad, right? It makes it look like a conspiracy theory. But I don't think they faked putting those women in space. Now there are people who do, and there's some great arguments. There's somebody that falls over. How do you fall over in 0G? There's a little puff of smoke that can't be explained. I've looked at a lot of the stuff, but the stuff that really is glaring, like one of the things you'll hear is there's no way they could get into space and back down to the Earth in 10 minutes and 20 seconds. And you're right. That's not possible. They also would have to wait sometime between 15 and 30 minutes on the ground before somebody could come up and touch that bad boy. Right? Because it's going to be 3,000 plus degrees when it hits the ground. You could basically, throw some wieners on that thing and have a cookout. This is a very hot cooking surface. Right? Again, we're talking about them going into space, because when they came back, they said astronauts, they went into space. They did this, this, and this. They didn't go into space. Because they didn't go into space, all of these things are different. That's why the vehicle is clean. That's why they were able to get up and then get back down, and to do it in 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Now, where it threw people is when they came down, they said 3 minutes north of our atmosphere allowed them to experience zero gravity for 3 minutes. That's not what happened. What happened is they were falling faster than right? And they were feeling 0G inside because of the apogee dive. And if you go back and watch the clip, and the first time we watched it, I said to Johnny, does it look like they're not separating? It almost looked like the booster was still going up with it. Well, that's not what happened, obviously. What happened is as they dropped the booster, they went into a straight dive. And as a skydiver, you will see this happen sometimes where if it's a plane like a Twin Otter, right, where you can put a lot of people on it, everybody will jump out of the plane, and then the plane goes into a dive, right? And it's flying to get back down and pick up the next batch of skydivers. So it's flying down as fast as it can go. And you're falling basically at the same speed kind of a thing, right? So you get that kind of sensation. Well, that's what happened. They went up and they did this zipper kind of ride. I'm still proud of all of the women inside. I mean, that takes huevos. In fact, it takes a special kind of huevos. You ever been in a car with somebody else driving and you get that feeling like, yeah, hey, Rip, I don't like being in a car when someone else is driving. To be in a ship like this, where really all you're doing is holding on, they said people got very upset because they said it was like a glorified amusement ride. Make no mistake, it is. Not being disrespectful. There are some rides that take a lot of balls to get on. And I'll tell you what, this would be a good one. But one of the other arguments you're going to hear is people are going to say, you can't take off without having on a spacesuit. Well, that's just not true. I researched that as well. And it would seem logical, wouldn't it? You'd say there's no way you could take off. Now, I'd want to have one on. God forbid something happens and you get any kind of a screw up in the pressurization inside that, and that's the end of the ball game. But they did not wear any kind of protective gear. They didn't have a helmet. They were not pressurized. None of that. Now, if you are keeping score, William Shatner did not either. These things are less rocket than they are wicked expensive glider. You understand? What they're doing is they're launching this puppy like this, and it's a glider. It is a very cool glider. It's the coolest glider known to man. You're going to fly so far up there that it is going to look like you're in space. You're going to get right to that international accepted height. So I think they were in there. I don't think they went to space. And I think that because of how they worded it, you have people going, they were in zero gravity for 3 minutes, but the whole thing took 10 minutes and 20 seconds. And then you start asking AI, and AI goes, no, it's not possible. It would take you 20 or 30 minutes to get into space. Well, they're not getting into space. And there's the answer to your question. How was all of their hair perfect? I don't know, right? There are people who are going to believe until the end of time that this was faked. It could have been, I guess, right? It could have been. I mean, they launched. There's no fake in that. The thing was launched. People can watch that thing. There were tons of folks sitting there. All the Kardashians, I believe, were out there because, damn, can't really have a launch without a Kardashian. Are you with me? Is it me? It's not me. So I believe it took place. I don't believe for a second that they faked it. They really don't. I think in 2025, if you try to fake something like that, Elon Musk is going to absolutely just peel your wig. Now, these are some women that are, I don't know. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm not trying to cut down on anybody, but are you surprised that she spent the entire time up there looking into a camera? Are you surprised that they were taking selfies or that she was carrying a flower because this is Mother Earth and blah, blah, blah? I'm happy for everybody. But who friggin' cares that these unbelievably wealthy people, right? Nothing funnier than Katy Perry coming down and going, I'll tell you what, I recommend it to everyone. You recommend that to everyone, do you? Who's got some cash laying around? The very first cat paid $28 million or some such shit. A lot of money. I believe I can explain. It's easy for you to say, all right, people, that could be my house burning down. I don't want anybody to worry about that. Yeah, right? Yeah. Which one is it? Just go check it and pull it off the wall. So there's no fire. So what happens is the batteries begin to go, and then that kind of. If they were in true outer space, they would have needed to be in spacesuits with emergency life support. Yeah, Rip, exactly. But they were not. And here is the rub on this entire thing, right? The reason that they're going to catch all kinds of crap on this is simply because of the, you know what, folks? Give me 2 seconds. See that? I want to tell you. 1, 2. Well done, Johnny Scoville. Thank you. Yeah, they do crave being seen. The Kardashians are a big deal now. And you know what else? Keep it real. They'll probably be on the next one, right? I mean, they can throw out $250,000 for a ride that does nothing, right? There is nothing gleaned from this. There's no science. There's no nothing. It is a exercise for the wealthy to have an opportunity to go into space. And that's great. I'm not mad at the wealthy for doing that. If you can afford to go into space, knock yourself the hell out. Go have fun. Honestly, who cares? So let's move on to number 2, Lori Vallow. You guys remember the Doomsday Cult mom. She was on trial in Phoenix, Arizona for the murder of her late husband, Charles Vallow. It was a conspiracy to murder case where they said that she got her brother to shoot him. And she was just convicted. You hate to see a family like that torn apart. They seem like a pretty solid family. I'm sorry, that was low-hanging fruit. She had already been convicted on so many crimes. This is almost an afterthought, and it's not the last case. I watched quite a bit of this. It was frustrating, I think, for a lot of people to watch because this is a person who is just having fun at all of our expense. She knows that she's going to spend the rest of her life in prison. She knows that the world thinks she's a piece of shit, and she is. Right? I mean, let's be really honest. This woman did not have a problem killing both of her children for money. Right? I don't know that matricide. I mean, is there anything more foul than killing your children? And to do it for the reason she did. So I was happy to see her get put away. I think that it's always uncomfortable when somebody like that takes and represents themselves, because you're putting them in a position to have fun at the expense of people. Like, for instance, if you watch the case at all, she had an opportunity to cross-examine a woman that went on a date with her husband, the one she had killed, went on a date with her husband while they were still married. And just the catty, pissy, jealous woman thing that she did while this woman was on the stand was absolutely disgusting. Jeremy Fowler, good to see you, man. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Now, honestly, there's just not much to this, folks. There really isn't. And there's not even much to talk about. However, the big one has just started. Honestly, the big one has just started. And this is the retrying of the Karen Read murder case. If you followed the very first Karen Read murder case, you know it ended in a hung jury. If you didn't, here is the Reader's Digest version. There's a college professor who worked in the financial sector as well, who started to date a cop, a Boston cop. And she was going out one night. They went to a bar, went to another bar, and then they went to an after party, right? Her boyfriend, a guy by the name of John O'Keefe, gets out of the car, goes inside, is what she alleges. Goes inside, never comes out. She keeps texting him. She gets pissed. She drives away. She goes home. Spends all night texting him, losing it. Where the hell are you? I'm done, you effing slob. How dare you? You're laying next to some woman. I'm here at home, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember the number of texts, but it's dozens and dozens. It's ugly. They find him the next day at 5 a.m. She wakes up in the morning at 5. They find him at 6. She wakes up at 5, freaks out, calls a bunch of people. They go by the house where the party was the night before, and they find John O'Keefe on the lawn. Right? Now, this got really dicey because they charged the woman who was girlfriend to John O'Keefe with 3 different charges. And one is premeditated murder. They claim that she ran this guy over intentionally. Where this really gets dicey is he does not have an injury south of his chin. Every single injury on this man's body is from his jawline north. Big one on the back of the head, occipital bones screwed up. Both eyes look like raccoons. In the last trial, they were unable to put him inside the house, right? They were never able to prove that he went in the house. This time around, there is some new testimony. And this new testimony comes from, allegedly, a device inside your phone, which will tell you the temperature of the battery. There's a way to monitor this stupid, irrelevant stuff that ends up becoming very relevant, because if he had been outside all night, then the battery in that phone would have been really, really cold. If, however, right, that wasn't the case. A lot of other stuff. But the opening statement was today, and Mr. Jackson showed up, and I have a really good feeling about this one. And a couple of things were different this time. First of all, he changed watches. And, if you know, I happen to believe in the lucky watch theory. And he switched up to a Rolex Submariner. I have high hopes for him on this one. He also came out firing, and he said they were going to prove some things this time around. One of the things is they're going to prove he went into that house, right? Witnesses are going to prove it. Technology is going to prove it. Expert witnesses are going to prove it, right? Eyewitness testimony is going to prove it, that he went in that house. That's number one. Number two, they're going to prove that he was never hit by an automobile. No matter what the hell happened, there was no automobile that ever hit this guy. And if no automobile ever hit this guy, then she's innocent of what they're charging her for, right? The rest is all sort of smoke and mirrors. It's going to be very interesting, people, because if you have followed this case, a lot of people step back and say, how do you square this up and say there's no corruption? You gotta judge that literally, if she's not in the tank for the defense, for the prosecution, if this woman is not protecting the police, I would be terrified to see what protecting the police looks like. The number of things that Auntie Bev, which is what they call her. And by the way, that nickname, if you haven't followed this case, the way they got that nickname was somebody had said, are they worried about the judge? And the person said, who? Auntie Bev? Like, they're so damn tight. And they talked about that's where the bodies would be hidden, kind of a thing. This case is fascinating because of a guy, a YouTuber, right, who called himself Turtle Boy. And this guy kind of broke all of this open. If it wasn't for Turtle Boy, there's an excellent chance that Karen Read would be in prison for something that she didn't do. And when you look at this, the last time the defense tried to paint a picture, and they tried to say, look, this is a frame up by the cops. I think they learned a lot. in the first trial. And I think what they're going to be hammering on, and you heard it in his opening statement, it's one of the best opening statements I ever saw, by the way. But what he just kept hammering on was, this isn't beyond a reasonable doubt. For instance, when John O'Keefe got allegedly hit on the front yard, one of his shoes came off. That shoe, they've since tested, and there are 5 different unknown male DNA signatures on the shoe. You think that there are 5 people's DNA on your shoe? For real? You think you got 5 dudes' DNA on your shoe? Unless you go inside, get your ass kicked. By the way, they have a new expert that's going to say there was a shot to the back of John O'Keefe's head, which didn't come from a car. In fact, it came from a step, is what they're saying. They don't say a step, but they describe it as if you would describe a step. Razor kind of sharp, right? Came to it's a step. But he hit his head on something, and there's nothing in the lawn that fits that bill. Nothing, right? If he got hit in the front and went back and hit his head on the lawn, which is kind of what they're saying, it doesn't add up with the science now, right? This new expert is saying, no, this had to have happened on basically a step, which the only place you can find out would be inside. But more importantly, she also said that shot to the head turned off his computer. She said unequivocally, 100%, in no uncertain terms, the second that shot to the back of the head in the occipital bone, which is these numbers right behind your ear, when he took that shot to the back of the head, his computer was instantly turned off. His ability to communicate, his ability to stand up, locomotion, anything, gone. And that's important as shit, because if what cut the back of his head isn't available anywhere outside, then how did he get from outside? I mean, from inside to outside. Because what they're going to say in the defense is that the only thing that could have done this to his head resided inside the McCabe home. So how did he get from inside to outside? And the simple answer would be somebody would have had to have carried him, right? And probably more than one person, which is how maybe you end up with 5 different people's DNA on your shoes, right? If you're grabbing people's feet, right? You two grab his feet. Right? That's how these kind of things happen. And then the shoe gets knocked off along the way. Somebody else picks it up. They bring it outside. It's not a stretch for somebody to go, all right, I can see how that would happen. Here's what is a stretch. What is a stretch is this. The guy that really has the most motive to get in a fist fight with Officer O'Keefe is a Fed who worked for alcohol, tobacco, and firearm, who had been flirting, right? And through text messages with Karen Reed, creepy, cringy kind of flirting too. He's not got game. It's awful to watch. It really is. Think you can handle me? Just kind of disturbing. But anyway, that chump suck said he was so tired, right? That it was a long day. He was shaffazed because he had been drinking like an angry man. So he wanted to run home and go to sleep. He didn't run home. He went to the police station. He says he didn't call anybody, but he did. He called someone who didn't pick up the phone, right? And that person then called him back. 2 people who were at that house when this crap went down. And they're calling each other right afterwards. And there's a 20-second phone call. And both of them claim it's a butt dial. Now, this kind of shit passes every single day because the world doesn't hold people to accountability. But a butt dial. Familiar with the concept of the butt dial? I couldn't do this now. It starts slapping this thing against my ass from now until the end of time. You have to open the phone. Right? You got an Apple. You got to open your phone. Now, then you could butt dial it. Right? But the guy on the other end, butt dial answered. This is their story. Both of them just butt dialed. By the way, there are 4 other people in this case who also claim that they butt dial people all the time. Because each time these people call back and forth to communicate and there's 20 seconds of phone call. You go 20 seconds of phone call. Hey, man, it's Tommy. Did they find that body in the front yard yet? No. Has anybody been there? Have you seen any lights? All right, man, call me if anything changes. What was that, 8 seconds? It's not a stretch to think these people are doing cover your ass stuff. Now, here's something else they want you to believe, right? They want you to believe that one of the women involved at 2 a.m. made a Google search. And that Google search was Haas Long to die in the cold. Haas. Missed the W in the typing, right? How long to die in the cold? She claims she typed that in because Karen Reed in the morning said to her, how long would it take someone to die out here from hypothermia? The problem is that she sent that text at 2 a.m. It's a battle of the experts. There are people coming in going, now, it doesn't mean that she did that at 2 a.m. That just means the last time she used her phone was 2 a.m., right? Now, you could use your phone at 2 a.m. and then not really send a text until 6 a.m. I mean, a Google search until 6 a.m. And it's going to show the 2 a.m. bullshit. I don't buy that for a second. And I don't think anyone else does. But they're going to bring in new experts, right? And they're going to go through all that. Here's one, people. How about the smell test? This guy, according to the prosecution, he gets hit by a large Lexus SUV that's going like 30 miles an hour, some shit, backwards. Now it hits him and he dies on the lawn. A dozen people walk out of this house. A dozen people walk out of this house, right? And they walk right by where this body should be. They get in their cars. They turn their headlights on. They drive right by this lawn where a white, freshly fallen silent shroud of snow would have a 216-pound, 6'2" tall man laying on it. Nobody saw it. But how about the next day? The next day, there's all this commotion on the front yard. There's people freaking out. Karen Reed is literally like losing it, right? This is her guy. She's lifting his shirt. She's trying to put her body temperature against his. She's trying to hug him. They're doing CPR. They're literally screaming at the top of their lungs. They're losing their minds, right? But nobody from the house comes outside. Nobody. Now, these aren't plumbers. These are cops and first responders. These are cops who are all medically trained, right? First responders. Out the window, there's a stiff on your front yard. There's cops showing up all over the place. You don't go out. Does that pass the smell test to you? Right? I'm not a cop. I'd have gone out to see if I could help somebody. In fact, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, no way in hell they didn't see it. Lights. Right? You got rollers. That bubble gum. Red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. No way you're not seeing that. And now there's shit tons of people. And they're walking in the snow and they're picking stuff up. Karen Reed is screaming at the top of her lungs. No, no, please, no. Nothing. Other neighbors are coming outside. But the cops, right? All of these cops don't feel the need to go outside and investigate what's going on the front lawn. Does that pass the smell test to you? Because it doesn't to me. Right? They loved John O'Keefe, right? This was their guy. Now, we're going to see all kinds of testimony coming forward in this. I want you to pay attention to Auntie Bev, because I want to tell you something, folks. This is so endemic of the problems that we have in our judicial system. For real. The Karen Reed murder trial is perfect. The guy that was heading up the prosecution in that case was a state trooper, right? Trooper Proctor. Trooper Proctor, on the very first night that he worked the case, he was texting with guys he went to high school with. And he was texting about things like whether or not Karen Reed was worthy of, boinking, that kind of thing. If she was a smoke show, and the woman had had some problems with some surgeries having to do with gastrointestinal stuff. To which Trooper Proctor said to his friends, she's got a leaky balloon knot. Apparently she shits herself. Lovely, right? First night. He calls her a bitch, and he says she's going to go up for this. Like, she's going to go away. And then he gets a question from his friend. And his question is, what about the homeowners, right? These are their homeboys. Right? The house is owned by a Boston cop. He says, are they screwed, right? Everybody was getting loaded there. Now there's a dead guy on the front lawn. And when you start looking at how much these people drank, holy shit, people. Like, I had a problem in my life. I was a drug addict. These people, even Karen Reed, and I'm a fan, right? I'm pulling for Karen, but she had a dozen drinks. And the way she said, 14. And she said, I was all right. I was okay, 14 drinks? Good God, you should be under the table at 14 drinks. That's an awful lot of booze. But anyway, that's how all of them were drinking. This is an abusive group of wild alkies. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. But this is a group of wild alkies, and they all protect themselves. They all are doubling back and doing this stuff. So as he sends this text message, his friend says, so are the homeowners screwed? And his response was, nah. He's a Boston cop. That's an odd way to answer a question. Is he screwed? No, he's a Boston cop. If the person said, hey, is he screwed? And I go, no, he's a dentist. You'd go, what the hell does that mean? Right? He's a dentist. Well, who cares what I'm asking you if he's in trouble. But he didn't say he's a dentist. You see, the answer, nah, he's a cop, means we protect our own, right? We protect our own. In the opening statement, Jackson said something that I thought was one of the coolest things I've ever heard a defense attorney say. He said, Trooper Proctor, the guy that was running this entire investigation, has been fired. He wasn't fired for doing bad stuff as a cop on cases. He was fired for doing something wrong on this case, on the Karen Reed case. What was he found negligent? Well, they found that he was biased toward her from day one, and that he was blind to protecting the homeowners, right? Make this make sense to me, because I'm going to tell you something. I'm not a cop, right? I'm an ex-criminal, con man. But if I call the cops, right, and I say there's a dead body on my front yard, they're coming in my house. They're coming in my house deep. Then you show up, and what do you find? You find a guy. And the first cop on the scene says, wow, somebody beat the shit out of this dude. I'm not making that up. They called to the hospital and said, this looks bad. He may have gotten hit in the face with a tumbler, glass from the bar. They thought somebody smashed him in the face with a glass because his face was so effed up and his entire head was so smashed. But nobody said, hey, looks like he got hit by a car. No, all of these professionally trained officers, they thought he got his ass kicked until that was no longer a convenient narrative. And you see, it ceased being a convenient narrative right around the time that Trooper Proctor and all of his friends realized that they needed to protect the people that killed John O'Keefe. I'm not saying allegedly, because there's no chance in hell that this guy got hit by a car. For real. I've had the misfortune in my life of seeing people hit by cars, right? On multiple occasions. Working as an EMT, I worked a bunch of different car wrecks, and I've had friends that I lost in car wrecks and friends that made it through it. But I'll tell you something. Johnny Scoville I've told the story many, many times about the horrific car wreck that we were in together when I was a kid. But he was so messed up that for weeks he would find injuries, right, on just different parts of his body. He'd find stuff that was messed up and, cuts. And I mean, this is from head to toe. He was just contused. There were bruises everywhere and scrapes. And this man doesn't have a mark under his chin. Everything is from here up. That, folks, doesn't pass the smell test. And I'm not sure how well you understand the concept of jurisprudence here in the US of A, but beyond a reasonable doubt, right? That's one of the highest thresholds that you can come up with. The doubt is, how are 5 guys' DNA on his shoe, right? How is it that the battery in the phone wasn't completely freaking frozen? Well, because he died inside, right? And where's the step that they say did the damage to the back of his head? If he went back and hit his head on a lawn, I'm not saying a lawn's not hard enough to kill you, right? Make no mistake, especially if it's frozen. But what the coroner is saying is he hit a step. He hit something that was raised, that had a sharp edge on it. You know what else is funny? I'm not a cop, right? Never played one on TV. But it seems to me that if I were a cop and I showed up and I said to the prosecutor, all right, listen, we're going to charge Johnny Scoville here with murder, because we're pretty sure that that he murdered this dude that came to the party. And then we called the coroner, and the coroner goes, it's not a murder. Sorry, what? It's not a murder. The coroner in this case said, I'm not signing off on this as a murder. Doesn't look like a murder to me. So the question becomes, because it's all part of a team, you see, you got the prosecutors, right? But the team in this part of the world includes the judge, right? For real. Because this thing never should have gone to trial, ever. But you see, they're effed. They're effed. Because if they don't put this on Karen Read, and they had to do it right then, because if they didn't put this on Karen Read, then someone's going to have to investigate what happened at that house, right? All these cops and firefighters beat a man to death, right? Over what? Well, we're never going to know. And these people are going to get away with murder. Heard that? They're going to get away with murder. The question isn't going to be, will justice be served? Because justice isn't going to be served. John O'Keefe's killer isn't going to get caught. We're not trying to figure out if John O'Keefe's murder is going to get caught. We're just trying to keep an innocent woman from going to prison for killing him. Do you know how many coincidences we're supposed to believe? They say, all right, pull all of the tape from every security camera between the condo or the apartment or whatever and the house where they found the body. Because we want to see if that taillight is broken anywhere. There's only one place that's got a good shot at it. It's a library. And the library, fortunately, has all of that. But the tape machine jammed for 40 seconds or a minute or some such bullshit. And the clip that is missing just happens to be during that time when Karen Read was driving by. Or the tape that they inverted. Hey, why is the little sticker that says you need to redo your oil change in 3,000 miles? Why is it on the passenger side of the window? Right? They don't put those on the passenger side. You'd never be able to see it. Oh, they inverted the tape. They inverted the tape. So you're looking at the passenger side door, but it's giving you the illusion it's the driver's side door. And they go, oh, yeah, that was an accident. Yeah, we don't know how that happened. It just came out that way. Good. Let us see the other one. Because there's two cameras in there. The other one, it's not working. Right? Come on, man. For real. Come on. They go out and they search the lawn and they find zip, zero, zilch, right? Nothing. They don't find any taillight, any brake light. Now, give Trooper Proctor a chance to get that car down to the Sally port at the local police station. And all of a sudden, it starts popping up like corn, right? 46 pieces or something, right? It's everywhere. A bowl of cornflakes. Got some taillight in that thing. None of it was there the first time they looked. None of it. Why? Well, they hadn't broken the taillight yet. They had to go get all of the pieces. The taillight was cracked. And they go, well, how did the taillight? Well, we know how it got cracked, don't we? Because we watch Karen Read panicking, trying to get out of the garage as fast as she can, right? To go see if her guy's alive. Now, the prosecution wants us to believe that that's bullshit, right? She doesn't have anybody there to put on the show for yet. You follow me? I mean, once she gets around Jennifer McCabe and once she gets around the rest of them, she can put the hysterical act on. Why is she freaking out in a garage where no one is there to watch if this is an act? Because she freaks out enough and she's trying so hard to get out of there fast that she ends up hitting her boyfriend's vehicle. And you can watch it on the tape. You see the contact. And where is the contact? Well, I'll be damned. Right on that quarter panel that has the broken taillight, or broken shortly after that. This whole thing, folks, stinks. It stinks. And if you watch the thing, you don't have to be Katy Perry, the dopamine Maine Coon cat, is anything but innocent. I'm sorry. She is the worst. That cat is nothing but evil. So as this trial goes forward, watch Auntie Bev. For real. Alan Jackson is going to take these people apart. Today, the first day on the of the prosecution's case in chief, they put on a firefighter / paramedic. He's a firehouse-based EMT. And he's the guy that said, I heard her say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Nothing like waiting until the third or fourth time that the cops ask you that before you remember it. Bullshit, right? Come on. But that's how it works, folks. This is how it works. Crooked police departments that do whatever they got to do to put people in prison, and there's no coming back from it. You understand? This is why the cases like Derek Lee, Cardello Smith drive me nuts. And as I said, I'm waiting to hear from him. The women that he claimed made affidavits, and they've all come out to say that that is BS. They've signed documents saying that. I'm still researching because, again, the sad thing is this. If you found yourself in that kind of a situation and the only thing that you could do to be noticed was to break every single rule and be a con man and do whatever you got to do, right? I mean, what's the other option? What is the other option? If every single time you file something, they throw it out. However, it's hard to fight on the side of a guy who has done this much because some of it now just, I don't know. But I'm continuing to research it. I am continuing to research it. But, hold on real quick. Huggy bear time. So on the Diddy front, P. Diddy will not get a 2-month extension. Voir dire will start in the 2.5 week or something of May. There will be no time given for them to have any kind of an extension. They have also said that they are going to allow the Jane Does, not all of them, but the majority of the Jane Does are going to be able to remain Jane Does. Now, I get emails from people that lose their mother loving mind about this, and I'm all about the defendant. Right? Even if the defendant is Diddy, I don't like the guy. But if the defendant doesn't get a fair shake, then he gets to come back and go to court again. Let's convict his ass and do it right. Right? That's kind of what we're all hoping for. But Diddy knows who these women are. When they say that they're going to keep the people's names anonymous, it means that in the court record, it's not going to say Tommy Scoville. It's going to say John Doe. But you got 250 people in the courtroom who are going, not Tommy Scoville. You can't even stop leaks, right? You could say to the press, we don't want anyone using the Scoville's name or whatever. But you're going to have bloggers and vloggers and just people who are hanging out, and they're going to go, hey, isn't that so-and-so? We're going to know who it is. But they're just going to do everything within their power to kind of make sure that they at least go out of their way to try and protect the anonymity of these people. Right? It's a very difficult subject matter to understand because there's a part of me that says, you know what? If you allow that to happen, right, then there's not much risk. And I'm sorry, but there should be. You're getting ready to destroy a man's life. You know? You're getting ready to destroy a man's life. And then we're going to come around and we're going to say, we're going to believe you until you give us a reason not to believe you. Right? And we're going to let you do it anonymously. It starts to get dicey. I don't want these women messed with. I don't want him screwing with the witness list. I don't want, tampering or intimidation or any of these things. But we've seen a lot of people use the Me Too movement as bullshit, including old Blake Lively, the second worst woman on earth. Right? And by the way, I'm not talking about my ex. I'm not being mean. She's just a pretty bad human being, to be sure. That is a pretty nasty woman, and her boy, her husband, whatever that guy is, between the two of them. But anyway, she weaponized the Me Too movement. She filed papers to say this man, right, sexually assaulted me or sexually harassed me rather, and 10 other people. By the way, this is one of the craziest things, and big shout out to Candace Owens, who kind of chased this down and gave us a timeline. But here's what happens, allegedly. All of this gets leaked to the New York Times, and then one of the people in the Blake Lively camp says, hey, we're screwed, man. We leaked this stuff. We shouldn't have even been able to have this stuff. And they started to try to retrofit a story to match the BS. So they had to come up with a company, right? A company name that then went out and made complaints of 10 women who said that they were sexually harassed by Baldoni. These guys didn't bother to hide their tracks. And the complaint, which was written and filed with an attorney's office or whatever, turns out to be filed through a company that is owned by Ryan Reynolds. The whole thing is bullshit. It's been debunked. It's going to get even more massively debunked. But the question becomes, if Justin Baldoni wasn't running a little extra tape, If Justin Baldoni didn't keep the text messages and the receipts, where would we be today? We'd be calling him a sexual predator. That's where we'd be. We'd be calling him a rapist, right? We'd be running him out of town on a rail. It's a frightening world, isn't it? It really is. We got very, very lucky that that Baldoni kept receipts. And I'm starting to hate that effing term more than anything in the world. I used to love it. But you know what a receipt is? A receipt these days is when somebody sends you a text message and you go like this. You know what? I think I'll screenshot that. Just on the outside chance that I fight with this person in a year, this is going to be one of those perfect text messages. Is that the world we live in? You're damn right it is. Right? It's now, that's now called a receipt. It used to be called a hatchet to the middle of your back. Right? But this is, I catch a lot of crap, and people will reach out and they say, you're not around anymore. You don't talk to people and you don't do this. I live in a world where it's really difficult to trust anybody. And that doesn't mean that everybody it doesn't mean that I don't love everybody. It's just that I've come to believe that I've come to learn that people that I would have bet my life on never burying a hatchet in my back did. And from this point on, I just kind of tread lightly. Hey, Tommy, what's your take on Diddy drama about to fire another attorney because they aren't starting to think about their careers, and they're going to be they're definitely going to be at least one or two more superseding indictments, in my opinion. I don't think that we've seen the end of that. I think that this was a poker match, a poker game played by some really, really high dollar attorneys. And I think that, hey, Katie, and I think that where we ran into a problem for the diddler was he has found himself in a very, very kind of precarious position. Look what I found. Hey, it's the dopamine became a Maine Coon cat. That's a very, very cute cat. So Diddy's trying to come up with a bunch of female attorneys, and that's a great idea. Because if you put Cassie Ventura on the stand, right, you're going to have to ask her questions, and those questions are going to suck. They're going to be uncomfortable, right? You're going to have to ask a victim of rape and of domestic violence questions to try to impeach that person and to make that person look dishonest. And if it's a guy doing it to a victim of sexual assault, a female victim of sexual assault, the jury is going to hate that lawyer. It's just the way it goes. So it has always kind of been de rigueur to put in a woman to do those kind of things. You understand? Right? So I think that they're trying to get a female, a group of female lawyers in there so that they just have a better shot of winning this. I think that's why you're seeing a lot of lawyers kind of disappear. And I mean, let's be really honest. There's a lot of money in this. If you're an attorney, most of the attorneys that are working with Diddy, these people are going to be making tens of millions of dollars. But if you think you're going to walk away from this with a hell of a reputation, you're not going to win, right? I think the best that they're hoping for at this point is to really get it set up, is to just really kind of get it set up for an appeal. Because how do you win this? And I don't think Diddy's a good dude. You understand that? I don't think Diddy's a good dude. I don't think Diddy is, I think 90% of what they're accusing him of has probably really been hyped up. And I probably helped to hype it. I bought into a lot of it in the beginning. But I've had a lot of time to really read all these. I'm not saying Diddy's a good dude, but we got to get out of the mindset of this person's a bad guy, throw him away. Right? This person's a bad guy, toss away the key. Because that's when you start throw a bloody glove there on over on Rockford, right? Just toss out a bloody glove. We already know he's guilty. Let's just make the case a little better, right? But he walked. He walked because they thought they would just make it a little bit better. And I don't know. We're looking at a case right now in Massachusetts, right? The Karen Reed case, where these are families upon generation after generation after generation of cops, right? And I've told the story a million times, right? But they've all got stories. If you meet old cops, they will tell you a story of the time that they planted a little evidence, or they broke a rule, or they did this, or they went in without a search warrant, right? We kicked the door in because we knew the guy was in there doing stuff. And then when the time came, we yelled that we heard somebody yelling for help. They call that extent something circumstance. Indigent, I can't think of the name now. But when you have the ability to kick a door in because you hear a sound that makes you realize that we have to go in there and save these people, those kind of things are trumped up all the time. And then they tell the story heroically, right? We got him, though, and we got the dude put away. He probably would have walked if we hadn't broken a couple of rules, right? But the next thing you know, you start to just the guns alone. He's looking at 15 years, though. You're right. And obliterated serial numbers, ultra high capacity magazines. These guns, some of them had 50 and 100 drum magazines. That is a federal offense. Having 3 guns with obliterated serial numbers carries more than 5 years apiece on it. If they stacked them, he could, or more just for the guns. He isn't going to get out. If they convict this man, he's not going to get out. He's going to be looking at so much time. And the feds have a very unique system where if you plead guilty, I've kind of described this in the past. Sorry about that, folks. But I've described this in the past, and it works on an axis, right? So there's an X. So there's 2 accesses, and one down here at the bottom goes 1 through 6 for a criminal offense, and then the other goes like 1 through 43. So you just got an access, and you literally just go down the guidelines, and you find your criminal history and your offense level, and you bring them to the middle, and you go, I'm facing 120 months. And it's got a guideline, so anywhere from 90 to 160 months, and they can give you somewhere in the middle, right? If you plead guilty, they drop 3 offense levels, right? Instantly for taking responsibility. That 3 offense levels is, depending on the charge, that could be anywhere from 3 to 5 years in prison that you're not going to serve. So if you don't plead guilty, you're going to get those 3. And on top of that, you're never going to get the bottom end. If you plead guilty, one of the things that they do to entice you is they say, well, the judge has agreed to not go over the guidelines and to give you the bottom end. So if it says 100 months to 130 months, you're going to get the 100. Plead guilty, and you get that. Plead not guilty, and all that shit's out the window. So now you're not going to get a 3-point level reduction, and you're going to get the absolute max of whatever the judge gives, wherever you end up for the guidelines. He's screwed. But he didn't have a whole lot of option, right? He didn't really have a whole lot of option. Yeah, he's screwed on the guns alone. He really is. He's screwed on the guns alone. But of everything that he's got in the hopper, that's what he's got to worry about the least, because he's talking about the human trafficking and the rape and the, human trafficking. There's such a buzzword around that in the U.S. right now, right? Everybody wants to, like I said the other day, it's the 2025 version of the satanic panic. We're looking for human trafficking under every single byway and every single bridge. By the way, all of these people have been talking about the tariffs and how Louis Vuitton is really made in China. And I said, I've been telling you people this forever. They're also coming out now to tell you that Rolexes are made in China. Bullshit. Let me explain something to you. We're talking about apples and oranges. You can create something made of leather, right? And you can say it was made here or made there. You're talking about 400 parts that have to come together and work right and be waterproof and heat resistant and all of these things and go through rigorous testing. And to pick one up and shake it, there's a movement inside that winds automatically. You get a real one, you can't feel that movement inside it. It works so well. I promise you, they're not making any of them. All 1 million watches that they made are made in Switzerland. The cases are struck in Switzerland. They have their own refinery for their own metals. They smelt their own materials. Trust me when I tell you, because somebody just did a video about this and they said, yeah, it turns out all the Rolexes are made in China. No, they're not. Trust me, they're not. That's just absolutely silly. Absolutely silly. Yeah, cereals, honestly, the cereals defaced. The feds really dislike that But where that's a problem is when you put it together with everything else, Sonny. You feel what I'm saying with this? Because now what you're saying, Cassie Ventura says she was in that house when he was handing those babies out to gangsters running up the stairs like he was, SWAT. Here, take your gun, take your gun, take your gun. Like, it was right out of something like, Die Hard kind of shit, right? He was getting everybody linked up with their firearms. This kind of behavior, why do you deface the serial number on a gun? Because you intend to leave the gun there and nobody can trace it. Or you intend to kill somebody with it and you don't want them to be able to trace the gun back to you. There's no reason to deface the serial number on a gun unless you intend to break the law with it. For that reason, they have no sense of humor about defacing the serial numbers on a gun. They do not. Hey, Nancy Wagner, good to see you. All right, peeps, that gets me to about the 1 hour mark. And I'm not sure whether or not you know this, but I turned into a pumpkin shortly after the whole 1 hour mark thing. After every video I do, somebody will put up someone will put up a comment and they will say, "Hey, how are you and Reese?" And I used to think people were just being cruel. But I've come to believe that some people just don't know that we are no longer an item. I wish her nothing but the best and happiness in all things. And whether anyone wants to believe this or not, I harbor zero ill will toward the lady, but we are no longer together. So I won't say anything wise-assy. Because normally I think that people are being wise asses. So I say something snarky back. And I said that to somebody the other day, only to have them explain to me that they really had no clue and they weren't being snarky. So I apologize. Just so that you know, there was some closure there. There was apologies that were said by both parties. And we have been very kind to one another and said adios and moved on. So it's been great. All right. Now I am off like a prom tux. That's right. We get naked too. We will see you all in the next one between now and then. Hey, honey. I don't know if I ever said hi to honey. Have I? Hello, honey. Good to see you. Christy Wolf. Have a good one. And I am out of here. See you on the next one, folks. Between now and then, do a little harm reduction. Come on now. Where's the cat to stand on it when I need it? Katy Perry.